when you go to bed at night,
Mm-hmm.
what is the benchmark that you think of, yes, today was a good day?
Was I my best self? Was I honest with myself about who I am? And when I noticed things that I didn't like or that I didn't think were okay, was I courageous enough to change? That's it.
What do you consider to be your greatest achievement?
That process. Learning to be okay being honest with myself. Learning to embrace that as a lifestyle and as a chosen way to exist in the world. Because I think the consequences of self-deception and lying to ourselves are massive. And they're not just for us, they're for everybody around us. So learning to listen to myself, to understand myself, to admit things that I didn't want to admit about myself, created a platform for me to be my best self. The public perception would not be what I just told you. The public perception probably is some version of my academic achievement, which is what I think the general public in Western cultures probably values. My education, my success, my research articles, my teaching skills, some version of my professional persona, which I can understand at some level because I worked really hard to get where I am. It doesn't dismiss that those were active choices that I made that I care about. I cared about getting a doctorate in psychology. I cared about these things, and it took a ton of work, right, to get here. But in terms of what I value, my own personal achievement, that stuff is really kind of just details. It all was formative in helping me figure out who I am and who I want to be. And that's the most important achievement to me.
What do you think is the most deprecating thing about not being honest with yourself?
Oh my gosh, there's so many negative consequences. I think to begin with, there's a very good chance that at some point in life you're going to look back with a great deal of regret because you will see that you didn't make the most of who you are. And I think regret is a very painful thing to live with because you can't change your choices in the past. Another major cost of self-deception is that you will pass your emotional baggage onto the people that you love the most. So my example of my daughter, it's very easy through our self-deceptive tendencies to want to deny something that's true, and it will teach someone else in your life something really painful. So I'll give you a common example of this, even in, let's say, romantic relationships. We're great at this in romantic relationships, of course. So let's say we're having a day where we're feeling uncomfortable. We're having a bad day, and our first desire is we're talking on the phone with somebody we're dating. We say, do you love me? Do you miss me? Now, is there any answer that that person can give you that's going to make you feel better?
No?
Either they're going to say, yes, I miss you and I love you, and you're going to say, oh, well, you're only telling me that because I asked you. Or they're going to say, no, I don't miss you and love you. Either way, this is not going well for you. The truth here then is that you're passing your baggage on to other people, and we do it all the time. If we're not honest with ourselves, we often blame a current life reality or a current person for an emotion that we're having that has nothing to do with them. And it will hurt people around you, and it will put a great deal of baggage and weight into your adult relationships. The most profound cost from a global perspective, I think, is that, as Hitler said, if you tell a lie big enough and you tell it to enough people, they'll believe it. We use lies to justify hurting other people all the time in very deliberate ways. By grouping people, separating them out because somehow they're different than we are, and in doing so, I can justify hurting you. And at a global scale, I think many of the major massacres of the world are founded upon lies. I think that it is very reasonable for us to feel pain in response to some life circumstances. I don't inherently think pain is bad. I actually think pain is information. And a lot of the time, if we're going to change something we don't like about ourselves, we have to feel pain. Because if we don't feel it, we won't change. So pain, I don't think is bad. Having a bad day is kind of like a version of pain or a version of negativity, right? Is there scientific evidence for that? I don't know. I think when confronted with certain life realities, there is a degree of pain that is sensical. And then you're confronted with a choice. Now what? Let's say something sucks about your life. Okay. Now what? Where do you go from there? What are you going to do? If you're going to let yourself wallow in that misery, that's going to suck for you. Have a lovely life in your miserable hole. Or you can look at this tough life reality and say, this is tough, this is painful, I'm going to be honest about that, and this is what I'm going to do as I move forward, because I'm not willing to let myself wallow in my own misery.